Silver Skies, written by Gail Chord Schuler, whose pen name is Gabrielle Chana. Narrated by Gail Chord Schuler. Introduction. Visit my website, gabriellechana.com, to learn which nonfiction sources I used for this novel's subplots based on real history. I wrote Silver Skies to hold back a Nazi Holocaust in the United States and to honor actor Brent Spiner, who's endured hell in his love life because of his love for me. All characters are fictional, but this story's conflict of David versus Goliath reflects my life. See www.gabriellechana.com. Dedicated to Brent Spiner and Jesus Christ for their love and support. If this book had not been written in the 1990s, with the bulk of it written from 1994 to 1996, the world depicted in this story would be the world we live in today, with Jesuit-led terrorists like Osama bin Laden creating havoc and anarchy to promote total gun control, followed by a complete U.S. takeover. Jesuits had to change their strategy for a United States takeover because of this book. Because of exposure from this book and Gabrielle's relationship with Brent Spiner, Jesuits allowed the downfall of the Soviet Union and no longer planned to use the Soviet Union with United Nations troops to take over the United States. Gabrielle's writings influenced Pope John Paul II to stand against his boss, the Jesuit general, at the price of his life. Though this book did not make print in the 1990s, Jesuits with their mind-reading technology knew of it and changed their strategy. This unpublished book changed the course of history. Because Dor and Brianna's story is set in a background, not fiction. After Gabrielle's long-distance relationship with actor Brent Spiner, 1990 and afterwards, Jesuits hastened their plans for a U.S. takeover at Waco, the Oklahoma City Federal Building, and Ruby Ridge, worried about the Brent-Gabrielle relationship. God stationed Gabrielle's ex-husband in Houston, Texas, 1994 to 1997. This made it possible for Gabrielle to drive to Meyerland, Texas, where Brent grew up, to research her scenes for this book. To honor her long-distance lover, Brent Spiner, Gabrielle made Dor Ben Habakkuk's home Meyerland, Texas. All scene descriptions of Meyerland, Texas were taken from notes Gabrielle took as she walked the streets of Meyerland, where her long-distance lover, Brent Spiner, grew up. That the love Brent had for Gabrielle resulted in this book forced Jesuits to devastate the Brent-Gabrielle relationship and ensure this book never saw the light of day. The Brent-Gabrielle relationship is depicted in Gabrielle's website at www.gabriellechana.com. Chapter 1. At the edge of a cliff, the woman of Dor's dreams gazed at the sky. Her soft hair radiated from sunlight that streamed through Douglas firs. Leaves whispered, rustled. 6 years, and thoughts of her still obsessed him. Rabbi Dor Ben Habakkuk wanted to forget about arms and weapons. Some place that reminded him of Brianna would lift his spirits. Seattle's Pike's Place came to mind. With fresh fish laid out in neat stacks, this fisherman's wharf had color, organ-grinding monkeys, homegrown musicians, and Indian artifacts. If only Brianna strolled here beside him. He bought presents for his girl and wife. He pulled Eva's portrait from his wallet and observed Brianna's photo underneath it. A necklace of lace and apple blossoms reminded him of Brianna and Eva's sweetness. He bought it for Eva. For his wife Rachel, he bought silk roses. Later, seated inside his jet bound for Houston, he kept the lace and flower necklace on his lap. His plane touched down at Houston's Hobby Airport. He had to try to convince Rachel of the virtues of his militia. His wife wasn't at the airport. He hadn't told her exactly when he'd arrive, just said sometime today. He'd take a taxi home. The iron-grilled gates around his Meyerland home loomed before him, along with the potted plants that ornamented his front lawn in a cascading terrace. It looked like a nature preserve. The taxi dropped him off. Thoughts of Eva comforted him, and he looked forward to seeing Eva. His key wouldn't work on the entrance gate lock to his home. How funny that it worked before. Rachel must have hired a locksmith. She sat on the porch's garden chair with her arms lounging about. The sky above was overcast. He had no umbrella. "Rachel, I'm home." Rachel plodded towards him. She showed him roses. "Don't you wonder where I got these?" "They're beautiful." He retrieved the silk roses and presented them to her. "Look what I bought for you." She seemed surprised, took the roses and inhaled. "Did you strike it rich?" She mixed the silk roses with the real ones. "I bought them in Pike's Place in Seattle. Would you like to come with me sometime?" "Only if you won't make militia stops when we're there." "How about a nice dinner date here in Houston, then?" "As long as you don't visit militias." "Why do you want me to stop the militias?" She placed her hands on her hips and stood straight at 5'5". "Militias, militias! You don't care about me or Eva." "If I didn't love my family, I wouldn't be involved with militias. I love you enough to try and save you from a Holocaust." "Concentration camps? In America? Do you see Nazis in uniform?" "The conditions won't be exactly like Germany, but they'll be similar. The uniforms may not look like the Nazis, but the people wearing them will operate from the same principles." "We're always controlled by somebody. I don't know anyone who's completely free from control." "Rachel, you don't understand. We have concentration camps." "You're so melodramatic. Show me a concentration camp, then I'll believe you." "All right. I'll drive you out to the place where they killed my father." She laughed until the clouds could hear her. "Your father died in a detention center, not a concentration camp. How stupid do you think I am?" "You think my father deserved to die, don't you?" "I don't know. It just happened." "He'd be alive today if they didn't send him to that wretched place." "That's what happens when you get too involved with militias." "No one in our family was involved in militias when they got my dad. I think if he was involved with them, they would have thought twice before arresting him. They probably would have arrested him sooner. Militias are a scourge on this planet. They should all be dead." All hope that Rachel could ever understand him died. "All right. I see you think all militia members are devils. Please let me in my home." "What about the children who find those guns and kill innocent people? What if Eva gets one of your guns?" "I've instructed all those who work under me to lock the guns in a safe. We only use the guns for self-defense. Don't bring any guns into this house. If you do, Eva and I will leave." Houston rain drenched onto door. Water streamed down his face. Thunder vibrated and lightning streaked across the ominous billows. Rain patted on the cement sidewalk underneath him and pooled around his feet. "Will you let me in?" Rachel had an umbrella. "You should like rain. It's a lot better than a concentration camp." Door's hair lay flat against his skull, drenched. Never did he feel so misunderstood. He stood against the gate and let the water drain down his body. Why did he feel locked in by the gates of his home like a concentration camp inmate? Divorce? Out of the question for a rabbi and militia president. Duty demanded he stay in this marriage, and he couldn't stand the sight of her white teeth, glamorous dresses, and glittering jewels. He promised his mother to fight the concentration camps. She couldn't walk without pain, had bad arthritis, and depended on him. Rachel went inside their home and came out with a gun pointed to her head. "Didn't he lock that gun in a safe?" She looked at him with eyes deranged and determined. "Better for me to die than my daughter. If I kill myself, then I know you won't let another gun in this house." "No, Rachel, don't be crazy. This didn't sound like her, but the image of a wife shot dead by her own gun leered at him. His militias would be doomed, and Eva would lose her mother. All right, I'll quit as president of the militia. Drop the gun. She pulled the trigger and laughed. He heard no gunshot. The rain tapered. Are you starting to realize the dangers of keeping a gun in the house? How can you live with yourself? She let Dor in the gate and motioned to Eva to come into their front yard. Eva tripped out, her arms extended. Daddy, Daddy, you have any presents for me? The necklace of lace and blossoms flung out from its clasp around his wallet along with his photo of Brianna that flitted to the ground. His heart twinged. He handed the necklace to Eva and longed for Brianna. Eva smothered his face with kisses as he reached down to pick up the photo from the wet grass. Rachel got it before he did, stood and examined it. She crossed her arms. What are you doing with the photo of another woman in your wallet? Someone gave it to me a long time ago. She held the photo high in front of him and ripped it to shreds. His heart felt like a knife slashed it. No longer could he view Brianna's angel face. Rachel had ripped the only photo he had of her. I have no other photos of her, and I have lots of yours. You don't need her picture. I don't appreciate what you did. Marry her, then. With Eva's hands in hers, she walked away from him. We're only friends. In that case, you shouldn't miss the picture for long. Are you so selfish that you won't allow other people to have a part of me? I get the leftovers, and I'm starving. He sat on the porch and watched her. The rain trickled and dripped. Then she closed the door in his face. He turned his thoughts to Brianna, who believed in him. If he fought for what both he and Brianna believed in, for freedom and liberty, he could win, even if Rachel conned him out of leadership in the militias. A pang went through his heart. Brianna would know if he quit the militia. But he hadn't quit. He just wouldn't be president. He went inside his home and called his synagogue. I'll be there tomorrow to resume full-time duties. I'm writing you, dear, just to tell you, in September, you remember, 'neath the old apple tree, you whispered to me, when it blossomed again, you'd be mine. I've waited until I could claim you. I hope I've not waited in vain, for when it's spring in the valley, I'm